Well, Mary O'Keefe, thanks for joining me today. So Principal Financial Group is an asset management, retirement services, and insurance company. You've been there since, what, 1990, is that right? Mm-hmm. And you've been in your present role as Senior Vice President and CMO since 2004. So let's talk a little bit about the company and its marketing strategy. Specifically, I want to ask you, what are the consumer trends that you've been specifically paying attention to and that are really informing your strategy?
Yeah, there are a number of things going on right now for consumers. Mm-hmm. We're coming out of a recession, the worst time in 75 years, so mm-hmm. people are, really worried about their future. The year of personal responsibility, we call it. So just at a time when it's complex and the markets are not stable, you've got people who the burden is all on the individual.
Sure.
So you don't have a pension plan like your dad did or your granddad did maybe. We also see that people don't understand what they're looking at. So the problem for them is, what do I do? I might make a mistake. So it almost becomes paralysis or inertia at mm-hmm. best. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we talk to people about is really finding out what they're thinking, doing a lot of market research, trying to get a lot of insight. And one of the basic things that came out of that with consumers is they're having a hard time envisioning their future.
Yeah.
What does it look like? What will it take? You can't really have a plan until you know where you're headed.
And having those options, knowing what those options are that are available to you. So you in the spring came out with the Dream Again campaign. Let's talk a little bit about that. That's from TBWA LA.
It is.
And it's multimedia. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so when we started thinking about, we had talked about rebuilding right at the end of some of the biggest recessionary conditions. Mm-hmm. But we always knew that was time-stamped. We always knew that was a dated campaign because we didn't want everything to be in relation to the recession. So we wanted to move forward, and right away when we said, it's time to start dreaming again, it's time to have some optimism. We've all been so hunkered down, just trying to make it through. And we were curious to know what of these trends will be long-lasting and what, as Americans, we tend to forget about and go on to the next thing. But we are finding that people are saving more. Mm-hmm. We are finding that people are paying attention more to their financial future. So our answer to that was to simplify the complex, to come up with this idea. Any company, you could insert brand here if you talk about dreams and financial dreams. But we wanted to listen to our advisors who said, I'm having trouble getting people to think about what their future looks like. So this tool that we came up with, which is the Dream Catcher, and it's the Dream Again campaign, and we have a planning center. Mm-hmm. So you can come on our website and you can look at tips, videos, you can see people like you with case studies.
And this is dreamagain.com.
Dreamagain.com. Yeah. And so it's Dream Again with the principal. Mm-hmm. And if you go on, you can fill out your own dream catcher. And you can really put your ideas together by putting pictures into it, words into it. So you might say, I want to write a book. It might be for someone, I want to own a home. It might be, here's where I want to retire. Mm-hmm. And you can kind of quantify, is that a big expensive dream or is it a smaller dream? I show horses. I wanted to go to the American Royal last year. That was on my bucket list, but it was not a big thing. Then talking about retirement. And it's a great communication tool because you can share it. So about 1 million people have come onto this site.
Wow.
And they're spending a lot of time. So when you look at some of the landing pages, and people are spending somewhere between 11, 12 minutes on average, but when we're doing heavier advertising, 25 minutes on the site.
How are you able to determine ROI on that project?
Well, one of the things that with branding is you really look at measuring attitudes and familiarity. So it's like an engagement in a marriage. You have to become familiar with someone, you have to like them, then you really have to become loyal, and that's when we convert to being a customer. But we're a wholesaler, so we're really marketing through independent third parties. It makes it a little more complex.
And you've got individuals and small businesses as your dual target, if you will.
Right. So there are really two gatekeepers to the individual. You have the advisor, the broker who's selling the plan. You have the employer who wants to attract people, retain great employees, wants to have people productive and not worrying about whether they can pay their bills. And
Sure.
So then we work to have the individuals get involved, the members of the plan. And this is where giving them better tools, having them see the future and be able to see if it's a young person saying, if you get started now, boy, it is so much easier to achieve your dreams. Or if you need to catch up, here are some ways to do it. So I think about 11, 12,000 people have said, now help me find an advisor.
That's great.
Because it's just hard. We've said, you need a plan, you need some help. And so with those two things, but you can email right away, you can email your dream catchers.
So it's creating that engagement.
Yes.
It's educating on the one hand, but it's also
Right.
creating that engagement for people
Right.
and businesses. Jean Chatzky is a feature of this particular campaign. She's the financial advisor who's featured on NBC, isn't that correct?
Right.
Why was she an appropriate fit for this campaign?
You know, when we started looking at people that we could work with who could give advice, Jean just fit so many criteria because she's so down to earth. She's able to talk about messages in such a positive way. We set her up with a number of small businesses and individuals. And long after the camera was turned off for these videos, she was still talking to them.
And these, you're talking
helping
about
them.
the YouTube videos that are featured on the Dream Again website
Right.
as well.
Right. So when you go on the website, you might click on a video of a small business person who's saying, I have arthritis, I don't know if I'm going to be able to be a baker for a long time, I have debt. And she would talk to people about what their situation was. So an individual who was maybe thinking they were going to be an empty nester but had a bounce back a child come back with a grandchild, she was giving them idea. Are you charging rent? I mean, just very down to earth ideas.
In line with that accessibility, that need to be accessible,
Right.
that need to be simple.
Right.
Now, for companies such as yours that's selling, as you had mentioned earlier to me, a product that's an intangible really, and it's also very complex. And you quickly run the risk of having people essentially tune out if the information you're delivering is too complex. What needs to be the role of advertising for a product such as what the principal offers?
I think today being in marketing and a chief marketing officer is a really challenging job, and it's got more opportunity than ever. So if you think about changing media, changing demographics, new emerging markets globally as we go into different countries, new people coming into the middle class, everybody doesn't look the same and feel the same. And so you have to really be diverse in your message, but you have to simplify. And so when you think about right now, what's the role of advertising? We think of it as it's not different, it's more. So you're getting messages and you're getting bombarded with messages because people are on smartphones, they're on computers, they're on television, they're doing it all at the same time.
Yeah.
So we think that if you integrate all of the advertising that you do and really use all the tools in your toolbox, so start with market research and analytics, move to how do you get your message out. And if you blend advertising and media relations and sponsorships, community relations to not forget about, but the web, all of that becomes one. And if you have a unified message that you can tailor for the audience, how complex. So for an analyst or an advisor, you're going to be much more in the weeds and you're going to talk about the detail of it. For a business, you're going to talk about their needs, attracting and retaining great people. And for the individual, it's how do you get started?
Right.
How do you make this not be so intimidating that you just stopped? And one of the things that we did is we put in a room all of the financial materials we could find, brochures, advertising. We put ours up there too. And what we ended up calling it was a sea of sameness. There was a predominant blue color, but it was very complex. So for advertising, we really want people to just understand that they can take a breath. It's not as hard as it looks, but you need some help.
Yeah.
Right away, just know that when you have it all on your shoulders, you're probably going to need some help. There aren't that many total do-it-yourselfers out there. But if we can provide tools, they can understand it. So we drive people through advertising, through all the media that we can use. So it's print, it's digital, it's television, it's all of the pieces. Drive people to this planning center and give them the information they need. And we found people have gotten very engaged in it and really like to come to it and come back to it.
What are you finding globally? What differences are existing in the various markets in which you're marketing and advertising?
So the global economic kind of trends are the same. If you manage money globally, there's a lot of passing through, but country by country, there are cultural differences, there are differences in regulation. So up till now, a lot of the emerging countries that we're in, so if you think of Brazil and Chile and Mexico and Latin America, if you think of all the emerging Asian countries, for those countries, they had mostly been investing or saving in their own country. Now, people are looking to invest outside of their country. But they all start at a different place. So I would say one of the things that's happening in Latin America is not unlike the US, where people aren't very literate financially. They don't know the tools. There's
So you
been
still
so
need
much
that educational component.
Yeah, so you have to start at the beginning. In parts of Asia, India, for example, it's a nation of savers, but not a nation of investors.
Interesting.
So people will have cash or they'll have gold. So how do you explain to somebody if you invest in an intangible, it'll help to increase? So our message is asset management, what we call investment management plus, really is pretty simple. You have to save for the long term. You have to grow your income and assets, so invest it for growth, and then protect it. Because it's much more common that you're going to have a disability or something might happen that you haven't planned for.
Sure.
So if you think of those three components for an institution, for a business, or for an individual, save, invest to grow, and protect it are really the three components it comes down to. And so those are the messages that we're talking about a lot. And then the next thing is, how do you do it?
So opportunities that you plan to capitalize on moving into 2013?
We took 2012 and we said, we're going to take some of our budget, because we weren't getting big increases in our advertising and marketing budget, and figure out what's the path for people. So what is it that people need to know, but then what? Then what happens?
Right.
Well, we get them to our website. Well, then what happens? Well, then they fill out a dream catcher. Then what happens? And if you follow that through to its logical end, you have a great opportunity to have people become customers. You can convert them to customers, but you can really deepen, so you have loyal customers and you can retain them. And for us, having somebody in a 401k plan increase their deferrals and stay with us long term is going to be much more profitable than when you acquire a customer. So we're doing both all the time, and we're charged with doing both. But if you forget about that, day in and day out, and back to the kind of analogy or looking at all the marketing materials, we just talk to ourselves as an industry in financials a lot. So we really have to look up and start talking to people about their needs and stick with it. I think one of the things that we see is that people change their campaigns so often because they get bored with it, or a new person comes in. And if you can really reinforce over time and have that simple message. When we launched our campaign, which uses an animated character, there's a lot of white space, we had some skepticism inside. We didn't look like other financial companies. It wasn't gold embossed, and people would say it might not be sophisticated enough. But what we found is it's been tremendously successful because people can understand it, and it doesn't make them
both inside the
uncomfortable.
organization as well as your target.
Yeah, so starting with small and medium businesses who are saying, this is complex for me too. So if you're a growing business and you might not even have a human resource department to start your planning, and you've got your own needs as a business owner, then you've got your employees' needs. And some of it is you want to treat your employees right. Some of it is it comes to the bottom line, keeping people and they're more productive. And then for the individual as well, being able to simplify and make it. People said, I see myself in this campaign.
Right.
Even though it's a middle-aged white guy, he's so undefined that we had people of color, we had women who said, that's me, because it's kind of every person. And so if you think about the trends that you asked about earlier, and you think about these emerging markets, there's so many people coming into the middle class. And a lot of financial companies are really targeting the high net worth individual. But if you think about how many people are going to be in that mass affluent and middle class, there is such an opportunity there. It's hard to do, but once you are able to think about how to go about that, the rewards are unbelievable.